Ladies and gentlemen, imagine standing at the edge of a cliff, feeling the wind in your face. One step forward, one moment of weakness, and your life could be shattered in an instant. This is what lust does. It lures you with a false sense of pleasure, but behind that thrill is a path to destruction. Today, I want to talk about a silent enemy that sneaks into your mind, controls your choices, and steals the life you were meant to live. This enemy is lust, and if you underestimate it, it can destroy everything you hold dear. The hidden trap, lust, is one of the most dangerous forces in life because it rarely announces itself with alarms or obvious warnings. It does not barge into your life with visible signs that something is wrong. Instead, it creeps in quietly, almost invisibly, like a shadow that stretches slowly across a bright room. In the beginning, it appears harmless, even natural. You may convince yourself that everyone experiences desire, that it is normal to follow fleeting pleasures, and that nothing bad will come of a small indulgence. This is the very first step in its deception. The ability to disguise itself as a harmless desire, as something that is even expected and acceptable, while slowly planting the seeds of destruction deep within your mind and soul. The danger lies not in what you see immediately, but in what you cannot see, the subtle, incremental erosion of your values, your discipline, and your focus. What begins as a seemingly small indulgence can quietly start to dominate your thoughts, dictate your actions, and cloud your judgment. At first, it may feel like a distraction, a minor diversion from your daily routine, a fleeting pleasure that does not demand much attention. But as time passes, what was once a minor distraction begins to demand more of your energy, more of your attention, and more of your emotional capacity. Your mind becomes a battlefield where fleeting impulses start to take priority over long-term goals, where short-term thrills gradually replace meaningful ambitions, and where the clarity of purpose you once had becomes obscured by constant, persistent temptation. The hidden trap of lust lies not just in the act itself, but in how it slowly rewires your thoughts. It teaches you to chase satisfaction rather than fulfillment, to seek escape rather than growth, and to prioritize temporary gratification over lasting achievement. Every time you give in, you reinforce a pattern in your mind that tells you your desires are more important than your purpose, that momentary pleasure is more valuable than lifelong success, and that emotional impulses are stronger than reason and discipline. The consequences may not appear immediately, but they accumulate quietly, like drops of water slowly eroding a stone until eventually the damage becomes undeniable. What is most alarming about this hidden trap is that it blinds you to its own power. It convinces you that you are in control, that you can handle it, that you can indulge occasionally without consequence. And this is exactly where the danger is most severe. The illusion of control is what allows it to take hold. The mind that believes it is free to choose is often the one most enslaved, because it has stopped questioning the impact of its choices, and it has stopped seeing the cumulative damage of repeated indulgence. This hidden trap is not just about the actions you take, but about the erosion of self-respect and discipline. Each time you give in to lust, you train your mind to seek instant pleasure over patience, emotion over reason, and impulse over purpose. Slowly, life begins to revolve around these fleeting desires. Your focus shifts away from meaningful work, from nurturing relationships, from creating a future that matters. Instead, your energy becomes consumed by chasing shadows, pursuing illusions, and attempting to fill emptiness that cannot be filled with temporary satisfaction. Friends may notice the change, family may express concern, and opportunities may pass you by, yet the hidden trap keeps whispering that it is harmless, that you are in control, and that life's pleasures are meant to be enjoyed without consequence. What makes this trap particularly cruel is that it is invisible to those caught within it until the damage is extensive. By the time you recognize it, it may have already undermined your self-discipline, weakened your focus, and diverted your life from a meaningful path. The key to overcoming this trap is awareness, seeing desire not as harmless, but as a potential force for destruction if left unchecked. Understanding that indulgence in lust is never isolated, and that every small act of surrender chips away at your integrity, your purpose, and your life. You must confront it, not with shame, but with clarity and determination, recognizing that the momentary pleasures it offers are nothing compared to the life you are capable of building when your mind, your body, and your heart are aligned with purpose, discipline, and self-respect. False promises. Lust is a master of deception. And its most dangerous weapon is the promise of pleasure. It tells you that indulging will bring happiness, satisfaction, and fulfillment, yet the reality is far from what it portrays. From the very first moment it enters your life, it seduces you with the illusion that it will fill the emptiness inside, as if fleeting physical gratification could somehow solve your deeper struggles, heal your pain, or elevate your sense of self-worth. But this is a lie. The promises of lust are hollow because they are built on a foundation that cannot support them. They offer pleasure that is temporary, shallow, and deceptive, while masking the destruction that quietly follows. You may experience a momentary high, a brief surge of excitement, or a fleeting sense of control. And for that brief instant, it feels real. It feels as if the world has aligned to reward your choices, as if happiness has finally been delivered into your hands. And in that moment, the trap tightens, convincing you that it is worth pursuing again, worth prioritizing over disciplined purpose and long-term fulfillment. The tragedy of lust's false promises is that it preys on vulnerability. It speaks to your loneliness, your insecurities, your doubts, and your unmet desires. It whispers that satisfaction is available, easy, and within reach if only you surrender to it. You may find yourself believing that one more indulgence, one more pursuit of desire, will finally fill the void that has been growing inside you. But no matter how many times you give in, the void only grows deeper, because the root of your emptiness is never in the act itself. It is in the misalignment of your choices with your values, in the displacement of purpose by impulsive desire. Every false promise leaves behind a residue of disappointment, a hollow echo of what you were seeking but could never truly obtain. The excitement fades, the illusion shatters, and what remains is often guilt, shame, regret, and an intensified hunger that drives you back into the same destructive cycle. This is why lust is so dangerously persuasive. It seduces while it undermines, it promises satisfaction while guaranteeing emptiness. And it tricks the mind into believing that temporary pleasure is a reward instead of a trap. Unlike true fulfillment, which builds strength, self-respect, and lasting happiness, lust offers only a fleeting escape that fades as quickly as it appears, leaving your spirit weaker than before. You may find yourself chasing after pleasure repeatedly, thinking that the next experience will finally deliver what the previous ones could not, but every repetition only tightens the chains, deepening the reliance on illusions rather than empowering choices. The promises of lust are therefore not just untrue. They are dangerous because they keep you trapped in a loop where you continue to seek what cannot satisfy, sacrificing opportunities, integrity, and relationships along the way. Moreover, lust's false promises manipulate perception. It convinces you that immediate gratification is more important than long-term success, that impulse is stronger than reason, and that pleasure can replace purpose. When you fall for these lies, you begin to make decisions that you would never have made if clarity, self-respect, and discipline were guiding your actions. Every decision that prioritizes desire over purpose chips away at your potential and undermines the life you are capable of building. You start to rationalize your actions, convincing yourself that it is natural, acceptable, and even necessary to follow the urges of the moment. But the cost is always far greater than the reward. Friends, family, and personal ambitions all become collateral damage in the pursuit of what was promised but never delivered. Recognizing the false promises of lust is not about condemning desire itself, but about understanding the distinction between fleeting satisfaction and true fulfillment. True happiness is never found in surrendering to impulses. It is earned through discipline, integrity, and choices aligned with purpose. You must see lust for what it really is, a temptation disguised as pleasure, a promise that cannot be kept, and a force that quietly undermines your potential while keeping you trapped in a cycle of disappointment. Awareness of this truth is the first step toward breaking free from its influence and reclaiming control over your life, your mind, and your destiny. Loss of control once lust gains a foothold in your mind, it begins to erode the very foundation of self-discipline and decision-making. The danger is not only in the actions that follow, but in the gradual surrender of control over your thoughts, your focus, and ultimately, your life. When you allow yourself to chase fleeting desires, you are giving away the reins of your mind to a force that cares nothing for your dreams, your ambitions, or your future. Lust convinces you that the moment is all that matters, that your impulses are the only truth worth listening to, and that the satisfaction of desire should take precedence over reason, responsibility, and foresight. In that instant, you may feel powerful, as if you are in control of your choices, but this is a deceptive illusion. In reality, you are being led step by step away from the life you could have built into a cycle of dependence on impulses that offer nothing but temporary escape and lasting regret. The loss of control manifests in ways that often go unnoticed at first. It begins with small compromises, telling yourself that just this once will not matter, convincing yourself that indulgence is harmless, or rationalizing actions that conflict with your values. Each small surrender reinforces the pattern, gradually weakening your ability to resist. Your mind becomes trained to prioritize immediate gratification over long-term goals, and your judgment, once clear and sharp, becomes clouded by desire. The decisions that once seemed obvious, logical, and aligned with your ambitions start to blur. You find yourself making choices not because they are right or beneficial, but because they satisfy an urge, leaving you vulnerable to mistakes, regrets, and consequences that could have been avoided. The more frequently you give in, the stronger the force becomes, until you no longer recognize the person you were before lust took hold. Loss of control is particularly dangerous because it does not merely affect one area of life. It spreads like a virus into every domain that depends on focus, integrity, and discipline. Work suffers because attention is fragmented and priorities shift from achievement to satisfaction. Relationships falter because emotional energy is diverted toward fleeting impulses rather than genuine connection, trust, and understanding. Opportunities are missed not because of lack of talent or effort, but because the mind has been hijacked by a relentless pursuit of desire, leaving little room for the patience, perseverance, and foresight that success demands. In essence, the loss of control is a silent thief, stealing not only moments but the trajectory of your life, gradually replacing ambition with indulgence, potential with compromise, and vision with distraction. What makes this loss even more insidious is that it often comes with a false sense of freedom. You may feel liberated, powerful, and alive in the pursuit of desire, believing that you are following your instincts and living authentically. Yet true freedom is never found in surrendering control. It is found in mastering your impulses, in aligning your actions with your values, and in making conscious decisions that serve your long-term well-being. The illusion of control offered by lust is precisely what traps people, because it encourages you to believe that you are making choices, when in reality, your decisions are being dictated by fleeting impulses rather than reason, judgment, and purpose. Once control is lost, life begins to follow a pattern that is predictable yet devastating. The pursuit of pleasure becomes compulsive, regrets accumulate, and the ability to prioritize what truly matters erodes further. Each time you give in, you are not just experiencing a temporary moment of indulgence. You are reinforcing a habit that strengthens the very force that is undermining your life. The cycle becomes self-perpetuating as the loss of control feeds itself, creating an internal environment where impulses dominate and rational thought is constantly overshadowed. Awareness of this process is crucial, because only by recognizing the early signs, understanding the cost, and committing to conscious discipline can you begin to reclaim your mind, your decisions, and your life from the subtle but relentless grasp of desire. Erosion of respect. One of the most devastating effects of succumbing to lust is the gradual erosion of respect. Both the respect others have for you, and more importantly, the respect you have for yourself. Respect is not given lightly. It is earned through integrity, consistency, and the alignment of one's actions with principles and values. Every decision you make sends a message, not only to the world but to yourself, about who you are and what you stand for. When lust dictates your choices, it gradually chips away at that foundation. You begin to compromise on honesty, authenticity, and the commitments you have made to yourself and others, all for the pursuit of fleeting pleasure. What starts as small, seemingly inconsequential actions soon accumulate into a pattern that others observe, judge, and respond to. Friends and colleagues notice inconsistency between your words and actions. Those who once trusted you may begin to question your reliability and intentions. Relationships, built on a fragile balance of trust and respect, begin to weaken, sometimes irreparably. But the erosion of respect is not only external, it is internal, and this is where the consequences cut the deepest. Self-respect is the core of human dignity. It is what allows you to stand tall in the face of adversity, make difficult but necessary decisions, and pursue meaningful goals with courage and clarity. When lust becomes the priority in your life, you are constantly making choices that contradict your values. You know deep down that giving in is not aligned with the person you want to become. Yet the desire overpowers your judgment. Each surrender leaves a residue of guilt, self-recrimination, and inner conflict. You start to doubt yourself, not because of who you are, but because of the repeated decisions that betray your own standards. Over time, this internal conflict intensifies, leaving you trapped between what you know is right and what your impulses demand. The stronger the impulses, the further your sense of integrity erodes, until self-respect, once solid and unwavering, begins to crumble. Erosion of respect also has profound social implications. Lust can distort the way you interact with others, turning relationships into transactions or opportunities for gratification, rather than connections built on trust, empathy, and mutual care. Colleagues may perceive you as unreliable or superficial, friends may feel used or disappointed, and family members may struggle to reconcile your behavior with the values they hoped to instill in you. The ripple effect of one person's compromised integrity spreads far beyond the individual, impacting communities, workplaces, and personal networks. What is particularly tragic is that, in many cases, the damage is not immediately visible. Lust often works in secrecy, and its effects are subtle at first. By the time others notice, relationships have been weakened, opportunities have been lost, and the sense of trust and admiration that once surrounded you has diminished significantly. Moreover, the erosion of respect makes it increasingly difficult to rebuild what has been lost. Respect, once compromised, is extremely fragile. Even if you recognize the consequences and strive to change, the memory of past actions lingers. People are cautious, skeptical, and often unwilling to grant trust as freely as before. This creates an additional burden: the constant need to prove yourself, to repair the perception others have, and to reconcile the gap between who you are and who you once were, or who you want to become. It is a laborious and emotionally draining process, one that could have been avoided by prioritizing integrity and self-discipline over momentary pleasure. At its core, lust is not merely a personal indulgence. It is a force that undermines character and credibility. Every time you give in, it whispers that your desires are more important than your values, that immediate satisfaction outweighs long-term respect, and that compromise is acceptable as long as it feels good in the moment. But character and respect cannot be compromised without cost. They are earned through consistency, courage, and conscious choice, and once eroded, they leave a vacuum that no fleeting pleasure can fill. The erosion of respect is not something that happens suddenly. It is a slow, methodical dismantling of the foundation upon which a meaningful and dignified life is built. Awareness of this process and the courage to resist temptation is essential not only to preserve your integrity, but also to maintain the relationships, reputation, and self-respect that define a life of true value. Emotional and mental drain, one of the most insidious consequences of succumbing to lust, is the profound emotional and mental drain it imposes on your life. Lust is not a passive force. It demands energy, focus, and constant attention. Every time you chase it, your mind becomes occupied with fleeting desires, diverting energy that could otherwise be used to pursue meaningful goals, develop skills, or nurture deep relationships. The pursuit of temporary pleasure is exhausting because it is never truly satisfying. You may think that indulging will relieve boredom, loneliness, or dissatisfaction, but the relief is fleeting. The craving returns stronger, more insistent, and more consuming, leaving you mentally fatigued and emotionally unbalanced. Over time, this constant cycle of desire and disappointment erodes your inner strength, making it difficult to maintain clarity, focus, and emotional stability. The energy spent chasing illusions is energy stolen from the pursuit of purpose, ambition, and self-improvement, leaving you trapped in a loop where exhaustion and dissatisfaction replace fulfillment and achievement. The emotional toll of lust extends far beyond fatigue. It breeds anxiety, guilt, and shame, creating a constant undercurrent of stress in your life. When actions are guided by impulses rather than principles, the mind becomes conflicted, torn between the desire for gratification and the awareness of its consequences. This internal struggle is mentally draining because it forces you to live in two realities simultaneously: the seductive promise of pleasure and the undeniable cost of indulgence. You may find yourself replaying decisions over and over, analyzing choices that should have been simple, and questioning your ability to control your own life. This kind of cognitive overload depletes emotional resilience and reduces your capacity to make rational, thoughtful decisions. Over time, it can lead to a state of chronic dissatisfaction, where nothing seems to provide lasting peace or joy because I'm preoccupied with unfulfilled impulses and the consequences of previous actions. Moreover, lust creates a distorted sense of reward and value, which further exacerbates emotional and mental strain. Your mind becomes conditioned to equate pleasure with importance, to seek immediate gratification over long-term fulfillment, and to prioritize impulses over responsibilities. As a result, achievements that should bring pride, satisfaction, and confidence feel hollow, while temporary pleasures seem disproportionately significant. This imbalance leaves you perpetually dissatisfied, as the short-term thrill is never enough to counteract the long-term drain. The emotional weight of constantly chasing what cannot satisfy becomes a silent but powerful force, influencing decisions, undermining motivation, and clouding judgment. It is a form of self-imposed captivity where your thoughts, emotions, and actions are tethered to impulses rather than purpose. The mental exhaustion caused by lust also diminishes creativity, focus, and clarity. The mind preoccupied with desire struggles to dedicate itself to meaningful work, strategic thinking, or problem solving. Emotional energy is consumed by distraction and longing, leaving little capacity to pursue ambitions that require discipline and sustained effort. Goals that once inspired determination begin to feel distant, unimportant, or unattainable because the mental bandwidth required to pursue them is being diverted toward indulgence and obsession. Even when you attempt to focus on personal growth or professional advancement, lingering thoughts and unresolved feelings associated with desire can create friction, preventing full engagement and optimal performance. Lust's emotional and mental drain is therefore not merely a personal inconvenience. It is a force that reshapes your life from the inside out. It steals vitality, clouds judgment, and leaves a residue of regret that colors every thought, decision, and interaction. It convinces you that pleasure is a reward when in reality it is a cost, a force that silently depletes the very essence of who you are and the potential you hold. The more you indulge, the more your emotional and mental energy diminishes, creating a vicious cycle that is difficult to escape. Awareness of this drain and understanding the true cost of surrendering to impulses is the first step toward reclaiming your energy, restoring clarity, and redirecting your focus toward pursuits that build strength, resilience, and lasting fulfillment. The ripple effect lust is never confined to the individual. Its consequences extend far beyond personal indulgence, touching every corner of your life and the lives of those around you. Every action you take, every decision influenced by desire, creates a ripple that spreads silently but powerfully through your relationships, career, and social environment. At first, these ripples may seem small, almost insignificant, like tiny waves spreading across the surface of a calm pond. One wrong choice may appear isolated, a fleeting mistake that affects only the present moment. Yet over time, these small disturbances combine, intersect, and amplify, creating waves that can disrupt the balance of your entire life. Families are fractured, friendships are strained, professional opportunities are lost, and trust, once broken, is extremely difficult to restore. The ripple effect of lust is subtle yet relentless. It touches others in ways that you may not immediately recognize, and the impact often lingers long after the initial act has passed. Relationships, perhaps more than any other aspect of life, bear the weight of this ripple effect. Lust has a way of distorting the intentions and priorities of those it influences. When your decisions are guided by fleeting desire rather than respect, empathy, and understanding, you compromise the foundation of trust that relationships require to flourish. Friends may feel used or betrayed, partners may sense dishonesty or emotional distance, and family members may become disappointed or concerned. Even if no words are spoken, actions speak loudly, and the subtle shifts in behavior caused by indulgence can create tension, misunderstandings, and alienation. Over time, these accumulated effects can transform what was once a healthy and supportive network into a landscape of mistrust, suspicion, and distance. The ripple effect, in this sense, is not just about immediate consequences. It is about the long-term erosion of connection, loyalty, and mutual respect that forms the fabric of meaningful human relationships. The professional consequences of lust are equally profound. When energy, focus, and integrity are compromised by the pursuit of transient desires, your work suffers. Projects may be delayed, responsibilities neglected, and potential squandered. Colleagues may question your reliability, superiors may lose confidence in your judgment, and opportunities for advancement may slip away. What begins as a personal indulgence transforms into a professional liability, affecting not only your own trajectory, but also the progress of teams, organizations, and collaborative endeavors that depend on your contribution. The ripple effect, therefore, extends into every domain where your actions matter, creating consequences that may be felt far beyond your immediate perception. Even beyond relationships and career, lust impacts your own sense of identity and potential. Every choice that prioritizes desire over purpose sends ripples through your future, reshaping the opportunities, ambitions, and achievements that are possible for you. Dreams that once seemed within reach become clouded by distraction. Regrets accumulate, and the life you could have built is slowly replaced by one defined by compromise and temporary satisfaction. The ripple effect transforms personal indulgence into collective consequence, illustrating a harsh truth: no action exists in isolation, and every decision carries weight far greater than what is immediately visible. What makes this ripple effect so powerful is its subtlety. It does not demand attention. It does not announce itself, and it often goes unnoticed until the cumulative damage is undeniable. By the time the consequences are clear, relationships may be strained beyond repair, professional credibility may be weakened, and personal goals may feel distant or unattainable. The impact of lust, therefore, is not merely personal. It is relational, social, and long-lasting. Each surrender to desire sends out waves that interact with every part of your life, leaving traces that are difficult to erase, echoes that influence decisions, perceptions, and opportunities far into the future. Understanding the ripple effect is essential to breaking free from its destructive cycle. Awareness of how one choice affects not just yourself, but everyone around you creates a sense of responsibility, a recognition that self-control is not only a personal virtue, but a social necessity. By resisting impulses and prioritizing purpose, integrity, and discipline, you not only protect your own life, but also safeguard the lives, relationships, and opportunities that depend on your clarity, focus, and strength. Every choice matters, and the ripples of disciplined action carry far more positive power than those born of fleeting desire, shaping a life that is meaningful, respected, and aligned with true potential. Path to freedom, the good news is that despite the destructive power of lust, freedom is not only possible, it is attainable for anyone who is willing to face the truth, take responsibility, and commit to disciplined action. The path to freedom begins with awareness, understanding that lust is not merely a harmless desire, but a force that can quietly control your thoughts, actions, and life. Awareness alone, however, is not enough. It must be paired with clarity of purpose and the recognition that the choices you make today shape not only the present, but the trajectory of your future. Freedom is a conscious decision to reclaim control over your mind, body, and spirit, to resist impulses that seek to undermine your integrity, and to prioritize long-term fulfillment over temporary satisfaction. It is not a journey that can be completed with a single decision or moment of resolve. It requires consistency, perseverance, and a willingness to confront discomfort, to stand firm against temptation, and to redefine your priorities in alignment with your values and dreams. Self-discipline is the cornerstone of this path. Discipline is not merely about restriction, it is about empowerment. Each time you choose purpose over desire, you strengthen your mind, build resilience, and affirm your control over your life. It is in these moments of resistance that true freedom is forged. Discipline allows you to focus on what truly matters, nurturing meaningful relationships, developing your talents, pursuing personal growth, and contributing positively to the lives of others. By training yourself to make conscious, deliberate choices, you create a life governed by intention rather than impulse, one in which your actions reflect the best version of yourself rather than the fleeting whims of desire. This deliberate practice transforms freedom from a distant ideal into a lived reality, demonstrating that mastery over desire is not only possible, but profoundly liberating. Equally important is the cultivation of self-respect. When you honor your values, your body, and your mind, you reinforce the understanding that you deserve more than fleeting pleasure. Self-respect acts as a shield against the lies of lust, reminding you that momentary indulgence can never replace the dignity, integrity, and fulfillment that come from purposeful living. As self-respect strengthens, the seductive power of temptation diminishes because you begin to measure every choice against a standard of long-term benefit rather than immediate gratification. This internal framework creates stability and confidence, allowing you to navigate life with clarity and moral authority. You start to recognize that true satisfaction is not found in surrendering to impulses, but in achieving goals, maintaining integrity, and building a life that commands admiration and personal pride. Another vital aspect of the path to freedom is accountability. No one achieves lasting liberation in isolation. Surrounding yourself with supportive individuals, mentors, or communities that uphold shared values and principles creates an environment in which freedom becomes sustainable. Accountability reinforces discipline, provides perspective when impulses threaten to overpower judgment, and offers encouragement when the path feels challenging. By sharing your struggles and committing to conscious improvement, you create a system of checks and balances that protects against the stealthy grip of desire. Finally, the path to freedom is about envisioning the life you want and relentlessly pursuing it. When you anchor your actions in purpose, passion, and vision, lust loses its allure. The more you focus on your dreams, the more you invest in growth, meaningful relationships, and long-term fulfillment, the less power temporary desire holds over your decisions. Freedom is not the absence of temptation. It is the triumph of clarity, discipline, and conscious choice over impulse. It is living a life where every step reflects intentionality, integrity, and the pursuit of something far greater than momentary satisfaction. Lust may be powerful, but it is not invincible. Its whispers can be heard, but they can also be resisted. Its false promises may tempt, but they can be seen for what they truly are. The loss of control, the emotional drain, and the ripple effects it causes can all be countered through awareness, discipline, self-respect, accountability, and vision. The path to freedom is not easy, but it is infinitely rewarding. Every act of resistance, every decision aligned with purpose, every moment of self-mastery builds a life of dignity, strength, and fulfillment. You have the power to reclaim your mind, protect your relationships, preserve your integrity, and achieve the life you were meant to live. The choice is yours. Surrender to fleeting desire or rise above it and embrace the freedom, clarity, and purpose that await when you take control of your life and your destiny.